Everybody, my name is Angela Hosking, and I am the Dean and CEO for Northeastern University in Charlotte. Welcome to my humble home. What do you guys think of our new space? Yeah? We've been here just a little over a year, but we've been in Charlotte since 2011. We were the first of the global campuses, and there's now 14. So we like to say we were the test kitchen or the best kitchen. And as our Center for Health Sciences grew and our programmatic plans grew in this area, we needed a larger space. If you haven't been upstairs, I highly recommend you sneak in after the programming and see our 10-bed skills lab and our 4 simulation bays and our actual working speech language clinic that will open up this fall pro bono to members of the community so that our students can have an experiential opportunity and so that our community members can get some services that they need. So we're super excited about that. If you have any information or questions about our programs, we have doctoral programs, doctorate of law and policy with a healthcare concentration, education. Keita in the back. Keita, if you will raise your hand, is our wonderful recruiter / associate director of recruitment, and she will answer any of your questions for you or for a family member. So there's my shameless plug. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. We are super excited today. Let me grab my note cards to welcome. The title of this talk is Empowered Voices Shaping the Future of the Queen City. And we purposely found the women who are doing that actual shaping. So I want to welcome today to the stage, first and foremost, Janet LaBarre, Robin Lake Hamilton, Hillary Crittenton, and Carrie Revens. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves because if I were to read their bios, we would be here for an hour. So I do want to let you know that this is an exciting time for Northeastern University, and we are part of the global initiative to empower women. This NU initiative is grounded in the belief that diverse communities empower a better world. So tonight in other campuses, in fact, Toronto's is doing this tonight, and this week, we're having events all throughout the globe and the nation and other countries. So you're part of our very first one here in Charlotte. Yay! All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a softball question, ladies. I would like you to please briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about not just your professional life, but you as the woman and the person. You on?
Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Jana LaBarre. Thank you. First, let me just thank you, Angela and Northeastern University for this opportunity. I know when we did our prep call, and you talked about this being the inaugural, like basically women are badasses event in Charlotte, we were like, yes, we are so excited to be with you. So thank you for your leadership and all you're doing in the community as well. So I professionally am the CEO of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. We serve as the voice of business in the region's economic development organization. Our footprint geographically is the city of Charlotte and 14 counties across North and South Carolina. So big geography, but really we focus on making sure we're growing this economy. We are advocating for business and we're convening diverse stakeholders. So that's the day job. I'm a 22-year veteran of regional economic development. I totally nerd out on helping to build communities with the lens of business and helping to create jobs and investment through the work that we're doing. I'm a mother of 3. I have a 13-year-old daughter and 11-year-old girl-boy twins. I'm a wife to an amazing supportive husband who has enabled me and allowed me and strengthened me and fuels me to be a CEO, and that's really awesome. And I'm a proud daughter. I'm a first-generation American. My parents immigrated from the Philippines back in the late 60s. And we're going to talk about some other things about being a woman, but I'm really, really happy to be here.
That was awesome. So good evening, everyone. My name is Robin Lake Hamilton, and I serve as the CEO of our Urban League of the Central Carolinas here. And so we primarily represent the entire state of North Carolina. I'm claiming it because nobody else did. And we do have a small office that's in Winston-Salem where they're a sister agency, but there is another urban league in the state. So our focus is to, as many of y'all probably know, we're one of the oldest civil rights organizations in the world. Everybody remembers NAACP, but the Urban League also was established around the same time. And our focus, NAACP was where you went when you got in trouble. They were the legal defense. And the Urban League has always been the economic development side of it. So we've always been focused on, health and housing, workforce generation, things of that nature, and eventually advocacy and policy is one of the things that we also do really well. So that's what runs me during the day. But just a minute ago, I was on the phone. My son's like, "Are you going to pick me up from a track meet that's in like Weddington?" Like, well, no, So that's my for real life. Then my daughter who's at home, and I don't know I'm positive her diamond shoes are too tight right now. So right. So you got all that going on. So I tell people I've got like four jobs. But probably the person that I finally have embraced and decided that I am absolutely a country cowgirl at heart. That's who I am. So, just went on my first cattle drive this last year, and oh yeah, I was like, I got to start living the dream. So we'll talk more about that.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Carrie Revens, and thank you, Angela and Northeastern, for inviting me. This is just so cool. So a little bit about me. Professionally, I am the director of evaluation and research partnerships at Atrium Health, or Advocate Health, Atrium Health, whichever one you want to use. But so and this is a new role for me. I actually just joined the team in February. So in my new role, I am overseeing impact evaluation for several of the programs within the community and social impact division, community health programming, mobile unit programming, school-based virtual care, all kinds of really amazing stuff. We're looking at the outcomes and the data to see what's working, what's not working. The other part of that role is research partnerships. So I'm helping to connect some of the dots between some of the academic researchers at Wake Forest Baptist with providers and operational leaders across the Advocate Atrium enterprise. My passion is in community-based participatory research. That's kind of what I live and breathe. My background is health education and public health, but everything that I do, I try to do through this community lens, where the work we're doing, we're directly partnering with communities to understand them and what they need and how we can bring about some better opportunities or close some of the health disparities. Before joining this new team, I was at Camino, where I actually started a research institute. So I was the director of the research institute there. And personally, I am a wife. I have been married for almost 8 years to my husband, who is incredibly patient and supportive, and always is supporting me through all of my different crazy dreams. I have a son, Noah, who's 3, and he is my why for everything that I do. I can't wait until he's a little older and I can tell him about mommy being on this badass panel, I'm a hippie at heart. I love to travel. I take risks. I drive a bright orange Jeep that everybody knows as soon as they see it, like there's Carrie. I love working out, being outside, and, just going on adventures. That's just a little bit about me.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, Hillary Crittenden. My day job, I lead operations and strategy for the Pearl, which is our new innovation district that we're building here in Charlotte. I am part of the Atrium Health team, the Advocate team. We say both, we're figuring it out on the inside. And I work really closely with our team in Winston-Salem that runs the Innovation Corridor, which is an innovation district also home to Wake Forest School of Medicine that has been established and been around for about 20 years. Similar to Janet and to Robin, I'm really passionate about economic development. A lot of what drew me to this role, and I've been here for a little over 3 years now, is just really the opportunity to impact our community with something that I feel like is really lasting and really going to change the landscape of our economy for years to come. Prior to joining Atrium, I was with the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council as the director of that group. And my background prior to that was in economic development consulting. I have 3 children. I love them so much. I'm very emotional, like hearing all of you guys talk about your kids and how they inspire you. But actually, I made a shift from retail consulting to doing economic development consulting because I just found that for me, knowing that the impact that I was having on my community got me out of bed every morning. And it gave me a great reason to say, here's why I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and here's what I hope it will accomplish. And I just felt like working for this bigger purpose was like a calling that I stumbled into so gratefully. So my children are almost 10, 7.5 and 5.5. I have boy, girl, boy. They're wonderful, curious, crazy little people. And married to a wonderful, very supportive husband as well. I think that's critical to being able to do all of the things. In terms of what I love to do, I grew up doing ballet 6 days a week. I am a French major from college. I practice yoga. I try to play tennis, but I don't get to very often because of the rest of my life. But love being in Charlotte and really feel fortunate to be part of this group of people and in partnership with many of the folks I see in this room in making Charlotte a better place. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And now you know why we picked these badass women right here. So I'm going to pick up on something that Hillary said, and I don't know if you all caught it. She said, my day job. Did you all catch that? So I'm going to go to the hard question first. This past summer, a viral monologue from the movie Barbie said, it is literally impossible to be a woman. Who saw that or heard the monologue? It highlighted the competing and often conflicting demands placed on women in the workplace, at home, and society simply because we are female. For example, being a boss, but not being mean, having money, but not advocating for yourself and asking for money. So who would like to go first to tell me if and how that monologue resonated with you and how? We are going hard.
I'll go. Well, I had pretty low expectations about the Barbie movie. I brought my 7.5-year-old with me and my mom, and I was sort of, going through the movie, Ken's pretty cute. We knew that going into this. Margot Robbie's not perfect, such a lie, right? So I was listening to that monologue and I'm like bawling at the monologue. I've been sort of unaffected the whole movie, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is my life. This is my friend's life. This is my colleague's life. And I do think that it resonated with so many women. I feel like, for me, everyone's like, oh, you can't do it all, but like, we all try. That's why we're all here. We try to be present and give 100% or 120% at work. You, of course, are trying to give 150% to your family, whatever that family looks like for you. And then, I think when we talk about achieving something better for Charlotte, you're trying to do something good for the community. You're trying to mentor the folks that you see as the future of your organization or the future of Charlotte. You're trying to make sure that your husband is like somewhat, you're engaging with him. You got to call your friends every now and again. I don't know. It's hard to figure out how to do it all. But I think that an acknowledgement that we're all trying and we're not all perfect is a really helpful and important way to, get through the day. And I think that when we had our prep call for this, we got to the end of that and all of us were like, man, that would have been really fun to be in person. And so I think coming out of COVID, being in a room surrounded by people that make you feel like, wow, I'm doing this for a reason. Women make each other feel good about themselves. And if they don't, they're not the ones you want to be around, I think that there's these connections that you have. And I was watching a podcast the other day and she said, women have face-to-face friendships, and a lot of times men have shoulder to shoulder. And you've all heard that. But I think that that is so helpful and validating when everything is hard. You never feel like you're doing anything well enough, but you do have these friends from all different walks of life, or peers or colleagues, who give you that validation. You're doing a good job. Like, that makes it all worth it for me.
Yeah, I gave up on balance. That's a wrap. Listen, bless all y'all. Listen, mine are 18 and 22. I'm turning 55 this year. And I am like, you know what? There is no such thing as balance. Never had it, never seen it. You can't have it all the same time. You can't. Not going to happen. So I have delightfully let that go. I have a grandkitty. She's 1 year old. And I love my grandkitty more than anything. And so, like, I'm just on this other interesting side. So I'm not, as worried anymore about balance, but I also don't have babies in the house, right? When you were rushing home to get folks in the tub and get folks fed and get, did you get your homework? Oh my God, did you get a red, yellow, or green today? I mean, right? All that stuff that we have to do. But, now I just realized that, I remember there was this woman that I really admired, that she had a horse training facility, and she was keeping a couple of my horses to do some training. And she said to me, one day she just looked at me and she just said, "There's just a time for everything." And she just kind of walked out the barn. I was like, that was random, right? But she had she had a little boy who was like 3, and they had just adopted a little baby. And I mean, she was a dynamic horsewoman, right? I mean, and so that just always stuck with me, that I know she returned back to that, right? So it's not like it's gone forever, right? God willing, if you live long enough and you're good. But I feel really blessed to be able to say, I'm letting go of the I can't be it all. You know what? I am not going to finish that grant tonight. I am tired, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, just all those things, and just being able to embrace that. But I also have the luxury of being on the other side recently, but I really do get where y'all are at. I get it.
So I resisted that movie for like ever. I just watched it 2 weeks ago because my husband and my son were away at a soccer tournament. April and I live this soccer life. And I was home with the girls. One of my oldest daughter plays soccer as well. And it was rare. We were like at breakfast that morning, and I was like, when was the last time it was just us? And they were like, because we're always dividing and conquering. Anyway, so we watch movies on the weekends. It's a special treat. And I said, well, what do y'all want to watch? And my youngest 11-year-old daughter was like, Barbie. And I was like, no. And she's like, well, all my friends have seen it. And I said, I don't care. We're not watching that movie. And I think I resisted it just because I, one, nerded out and read too much in advance, listened to news stories and literature about like feminism and how this is like in the face of it. And I just was like, I can't do it. It's just another thing that I don't want to add pressure into my life. But reluctantly caved to my sweet little 11-year-old daughter, Eloise. And we watched it. And Mabel, my oldest, is a cool kid. She's just cool. Shit just deflects off of her. Like, she doesn't, if it's popular, she's not into it. Like, she's just this cool kid. Like, she's so confident. I just admire how cool she is, because I wasn't. I was nervous and insecure. And, I just watch and I'm like, I love you so much because you're just so cool. I wasn't like that. So she didn't care, but we watched it. And similarly, I had low expectations, no expectations, and then got to the monologue, and I was similarly bawling, because it just struck everything that Hillary said, the chords of, the expectations, the pressure we put on ourselves, and we try to do it all. But actually, like Robin, when Mabel was born, I actually let go of can't be 100% professional, can't be 100% wife today, can't be 100% like mom. And the minute I let that go and realized that I can't have it all, I'm not going to be effective 100% in all these areas, bam, I was like, whew, like this feels good. Okay, cool. I'm going to be 20% professional today. I'm going to be 40% mom and I'm going to be like 10% wife, whatever that is. I know that's not math, but it has been, really, I think, eye-opening for me because we just, whether it's society, whether it's ourselves, whether it's someone else, I just told myself a long time ago, it just doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. The most important thing is how I feel about how I'm doing, because I'm no good to anybody unless I feel pretty good about how I'm feeling about myself. And so again, the minute you realize and embrace that and know that that's the expectation for you, I feel like that this tremendous amount of weight just comes out of your body. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I, very similar, wasn't planning on watching the Barbie movie, but I actually saw the clip of the monologue, watched that, and had the goosebumps and was just like, oh my gosh, this is spot on. Like she hit the nail on the head. I feel seen. I feel validated. This is what it feels like to be a woman. And then because of the monologue, I was like, well, now I've got to watch the movie. Okay. So I went from like Barbie movie to like, there are friends here who I have made come to my house and have sleepovers and watch the Barbie movie. So I was like, you guys have to watch this. You have to. So all of what you're saying resonates with me, and the thing of just saying I can't do it all, and I can't be perfect at all of it. I'm a perfectionist, and that's something I've worked on my whole life and I'm still working on, but I can't be perfect at everything. I can just do what I can do that day. And similar to you, like with the percents, it's like, well, if I only have 30% to give today, period, and I give that 30%, then I gave 100% of what I had that day, right? So kind of coming to terms with some of those things and letting yourself be okay with it. It's hard, but over time, you can get there, and it does feel like a weight is off of your shoulders. I think the other thing too that resonated with me from the monologue was when she said something like, I'm so tired of us tying ourselves in knots to get people to like us. So also thinking of what you said, like get to the point where I'm tired of trying to make other people like me. I just want to like me and be me. And then as it turns out, when you're being me, a lot of people actually do like you. So, and they want to, be around you and support you. And then the last thing I'll say about that too, is I think that we have to also remember that it's okay to ask for help with whatever that is. If you need help at home, if you need help with the kids, if you need help at work, if you need help, like you need to go talk to a therapist, whatever that looks like, if you need help, it is totally okay to ask for it. We cannot do it all ourselves. And we're going to hurt ourselves trying, right? So we need to be able to give ourselves that grace to say, I can't do it. Or like you said, not today, not the grant today. Or you know what, maybe this one's just not getting submitted because we can't make the deadline. Whatever that looks like, we have to be okay with it and let it go.
Well, amazing answers and such vulnerability. I want to thank all of you for answering that. I think what's amazing about starting with that hard question is now you heard their professional roles, you heard the big jobs that they have, right? And probably all of you were thinking, oh, I could never do that, right? Or how does she do that, right? She must be doing the things I'm not doing. But I think we just established that you're not all perfect, right? Okay. So in keeping with that line of thought, I think let's pivot a little bit back to the roles that you're in today and how you got into those roles. Because I think for many women, they see a senior level woman with a very big title or a lot of letters behind their names, and they think, well, that's because that person is special, did this, did that, but I can't ever do it. So I'd love for you to share, and whoever would like to go first, a pivotal moment or experience that helped to point you into the position you're in today. Because I fully believe that, Janet, when you were 12, you were not saying, when I grow up, I want to be the CEO of the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, right? Okay. So share a pivotal moment or something that pointed you into the direction to guide you into the role that you're in today. So whoever would like to go first.
I'll take that one. So I failed, and I was I was fired from a job. It was wrongful termination, but I was still fired. And I mean, it was a clutch my pearls moments because I was like, do you have the right one? Because I just never imagined something like that happening for me. And this was honestly, I'm not kidding when I say this was my dream job. To this day, I still don't know what happened. I mean, I have no idea what happened, but I don't know what happened. But couldn't get out of bed for 6 months. I was so broken. And but at the same time, so kind of get up, got to go in, took the time, went to Malawi, Africa. I realized I was like, suck it up, buttercup. You know what I'm saying? You're all right. Came back, and began to just kind of, do some things and got a call from my previous board chair. And she was like, yeah, we heard you're in town. Got some time? I was like, yeah, I got some time, you know? So I'll just come over. I was like, I'll just help out with a not-for-profit. So this is the second CEO position for me. So it's not new, but I never set out to be the CEO of anything, right? I feel again kind of great where I am right now in life because I've had the unthinkable happen, right? I've had the big fall, I've had the crash, but I couldn't see it in that moment. Like I could not see it in that moment. So I'm not gonna be like, oh girl, you're good, you'll be all right. No, I don't hear that. It wasn't until and I've now been in this role for about a year and a half. Wasn't planning to stay. I was just passing through. I'll help y'all out for a little bit. We're gonna get you a great president CEO. It's not gonna be me, but we're gonna get you one. And so wound up staying and, probably maybe about 6 or 7 months ago, I realized I was like, you're in your dream job. So you don't know what God will do. Cause I thought I was in my dream job and I was good. This was it. I was retiring and I just had the rug completely snatched from up under me. Absolutely blew me away. So, I will tell you that, failure is not going to kill you, right? I really thought it would, but failure is not going to kill you, right? So for me, it ushered me into where I am now. And I tell people, I used to have a professor that said, if you have to run at least 2 good companies in the ground before you're ready to be an entrepreneur. So I was like, 2? He was like, yeah, you got to run 2 of them in the ground and then you're really ready to go. And so I've just always remembered that. And so I always try to tell my kids, I was like, you failed, just don't take it so, like, oh my goodness, this is it. Right. Embrace it, figure it out, sit with it, let it heal, and just see what happens. But I feel like when you've reached a point where you've had the rug snatched from up under you and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It was humbling. It opened my eyes to so many things. I just see people differently. I see day-to-day life differently. So, in a weird way, I'm grateful for it. But at the time that I was in it, I guarantee you I wasn't feeling that way. And I didn't see it, but that's what kind of stumbled me into this particular role. The rest of them, the stories are crazier. But yeah, that's what stumbled me into this one. So
Anybody else?
Well, I mean, I fell into economic development. Similarly, I followed my then boyfriend, now husband, to Phoenix, Arizona, and needed a job and applied for this research communications position. Communications was my undergrad, and I did a smattering of jobs after college, but got a job working for the Maricopa Community Colleges in workforce development, and it changed my life because I realized the importance that an institution, in this case, a Center for Workforce Development, can have on giving people the skills they need to be gainfully employed and productive in the workforce. And there's this concept in Japan called ikigai. I'm Filipino, by the way, I'm not Japanese, but I adore that culture. It's called ikigai, and it's something like it's what you're good at, it's what the world needs, and you can make money on it. It's this Zen diagram. And that's what I've been doing, is this purpose of, I really love economic development. I really love the idea that through work that we can do, we are having some positive impact on a community and the people who live in it. And so I'm hooked, line, and sinker in this work. I cannot imagine doing anything else, but one day they'll get tired of me and kick me out, and that's cool because I'll find economic development work, hopefully still in Charlotte, but doing something, that's just tied back to purpose. And so I just, I adore what I do. What you just shared though was pretty like amazing. So thank you for sharing that.
I'll just share really quickly. I told you guys a little bit about my moment earlier when I sort of realized doing this type of work gets me out of bed in the morning. But I think one thing that is just was really an impactful point looking back on my career. When I was like 24, I was living in New York. I was working in investment banking. I was getting killed. I was miserable. I hated my work. I liked my company, but I didn't love the work, and that combined with getting killed, like no way to be. I just was dying to be in New York. And so, you get the job, you go, you could pay for the apartment. So I was there. And I remember I was working for this client, and it was this investment fund, and the woman who was leading the fundraising for this client, super cool. She was like 10 years older than me. I loved hanging out with her. I'd worked for her for 9 months on this project. We blew it out of the water, and we're having a conversation. And she said something about, growth and needing support. And I was like, joking, but not really. I was like, if you ever need support, I would come and work with you. And she goes, wait, really? Are you serious? And I realized that, putting yourself out there when it's the right person, it's something that you're really interested in, like whatever your personal style is, doing that in that way and letting folks know that like I'm interested oftentimes turns into something bigger. And that's happened to me at multiple points in my career, not just like nudging someone you've never met before, but they've gotten to know you. They know your working style. They know you work hard. They know that you are a good team player. And if you never put yourself out there, they might never think that you'd be willing to jump because they just assume you're super happy where you are. And maybe you are, but who knows how your development is going to come from there. And so I think for me, my style is not to be like, hey, I want to go after this big job. I want to put myself out there and run after it. My style is to be like, hey, if you're ever thinking of someone, maybe think of me. But I think that's okay. Like that's authentic for me. And like, I would not feel comfortable bulldogging after a job, but letting people know, yeah, that's cool. I'd love to learn about it, has actually opened doors for me. And so I think just food for thought as you think about development and exploration.
A lot of that is like, be kind. Just be nice. Just be nice to people. I was laughing because I was like, I think half this audience is here for Carrie because they either worked with her or they came to see her or whatever. And so before you go, I had to say, I could tell she's just kind, right? And so you want to stay connected to people that are just kind.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Well, I was going to say, a pivotal blah. Thanks. Be vulnerable, guys. Let yourself make mistakes, right? That moment, one of those moments for me, honestly, is starting Camino Research Institute. So after finishing my PhD, I had already been volunteering and doing work with Camino, local nonprofit serving Latino families. Had already really poured my heart and soul into that, did my dissertation work there, and then, fresh out of a doctorate degree, I'm Dr. Evans, I need a job, but someone's going to hire me, right? And I kept hitting different dead ends, and I end up being at Camino, which I loved. And so I was able to continue my doctoral work, which I think is probably pretty rare for a student to be able to carry that on. And then being able to actually feel comfortable enough to speak up with ideas. So as I had already been doing a lot of research with Latinos, I was very acutely aware of the lack of data on certain populations, especially immigrant populations and documented populations. And we needed the data to drive our services and to use for grants and to get funding. And it just wasn't there. And I continuously cited a certain Latino needs assessment report from 2006. And I was like, I kept saying, this is so outdated. Someone needs to update this. Everything's changed, the geography, the population, the landscape, all of this. And at the time I had one person on my team at Camino, and I kept saying that. And then we had this sort of light bulb moment of, oh, it should be us. We're going to be the ones to update this data. And being able to talk about that with my former advisor from UNC Charlotte, as well as my boss at Camino, who's the CEO, to say, hey, this is something that we need to do. Let's think about that. And then from that saying, you know what, we really want to establish ourselves as experts in Latino research. We want to have credibility. We want people to take us seriously. We're researchers. This is going to be a scientific, rigorous process. So I came to my boss and said, hey, I want to start a research institute here. Just no big deal. Like, we'll just start one. And if you know him, you won't be surprised that he was like, okay, actually he said dale, which is Spanish for go ahead, let's do it. But I think what I learned from that is if you have an idea, even if it's like, man, I don't know how we're going to do this. This is a lot of work. We did the Latino Community Strengths and Needs Assessment in Mecklenburg County. We finished it. We released the data. The team at Camino is still doing it across the state. But at the time, I was like, I don't know actually how this is going to happen. We have no funding for this. I had a team of one. I hired a second person. We were like, we wanted to do it completely community driven, but not really knowing the how, but just thinking that, you know what, I have this idea and I don't think it's so crazy. I'm going to put myself out there. And in doing that, I was able to start the Research Institute and do a lot of that pivotal work where I would not be in the position I'm in today or sitting here if it weren't for that moment. So the kind of like takeaway from that is speak up, share your ideas, no matter how crazy you might think that they are. And maybe it won't work out, but maybe it will. In this case, it did. So thanks.
So I want to pivot a little bit because there's a lot of dialogue around you got to have a mentor. You got to have a mentor. You better have a mentor. Does everyone in here have a mentor? Okay. Well, we're going to hopefully give you some other ideas than just a formal mentor. So I would love to know, how do you grow professionally, or have you grown professionally outside of a traditional mentorship or sponsorship? What have been some of the ways that you have found elevation community growth that might be tools or tips that people can take away today and explore themselves? Because I have an answer, and I'm not supposed to do this because I'm the moderator, but I shared this with my 31-year-old daughter just last week. And I told her that I was raised with traditionalist parents. I was much younger as the basically. There's 14 years between my brother and I, 10 years between my sister and I. And so my mother was of a very different generation. And I was eager and educated and wanted to be more educated. And I love my mom. My mom's amazing. But not necessarily the right mentor for me. And so when I was 20 in college, I'm dating myself, there was a show that came on every afternoon at 4 p.m. Does everyone know that show? It was Oprah Winfrey. Now I am dating myself. And for the next 25 years, I was mentored by Oprah Winfrey. She doesn't know that she's my other mother. But truth be told, for me, and this is, again, dating myself, y'all had encyclopedias that were from like 1967 because my parents didn't buy the new ones. So, the internet wasn't there, and there wasn't like the Google machine, and there wasn't anything but the television. And so this woman who was doing this talk show and talking about things that we didn't normally talk about, and having guests and doing the conversations and talking about professional development in a way that I had never been exposed to. And so that's my tip, is it doesn't have to be somebody that you know, and it certainly doesn't have to be somebody that you meet with on a regular basis. It can be somebody that you admire and you listen to their podcast or you follow them on Instagram or Twitter or the TikTok and all the things. But for me, and you know, she still comes into my home and she is still I say, what would Oprah do? Probably a little too much there. But anyway, that's one thing in that vein. Maybe there are some opportunities or things that someone else can share. And if not, I just stole the question.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you know, like looking into different trainings and professional development workshops and those kind of things, of course, are very traditional routes and they're helpful. But, you know, at times maybe you don't have the resources to pay the money or the certification or whatever that looks like. So I know this is not what you asked, but for me, the mentorship piece really is so important. My network, my social support system, other strong women that I can go to and talk to and ask for advice. And all the jobs that I've ever had, I still talk to my former boss and leaders and coworkers and get advice from them about my next career move or professional development opportunities. So for me, it is very much relational, and having those relationships, making those connections and having certain people that I can go to for that advice or those tips on even what training should I look at or what conference should I attend? Because attending a professional conference is a great way too. You can learn so much from other people in your field and that are doing similar work or maybe that are doing different things that you could replicate. So I'm a big fan of attending conferences, but those are also very expensive. There's some really hilarious memes about that actually, where it's like, come to our conference. It's only going to be $1,000 registration, $5,000 for the flight, this much for the hotel, and you'll get 5 minutes to talk and you'll be drilled. But come, we can't wait. So I understand that there are barriers to that. But I think the connectivity, the networking, and the relational aspects are just a really important part of your professional development.
Thank you.
This is very, very different, not the answer you'll want to hear. But I'm in a job where I have a board. I have a big board, and I have a lot of stakeholders. Some of you are in the audience. Thank you for being investors and partners of the organization. And there's no shortage of people giving me their thoughts or opinions. And it is also my job to listen to that. I think there are some days, though, that it's just like on my chest. Like I can't breathe because there's so much thought and thinking and input and feedback. And so I think the mentoring sometimes for me comes from my own self-awareness and my own exploration of what does Janet think? Like, what do I think about the hundreds of opinions that I've heard today? And that is growth. You know, it is true growth to go, what do I want to do? And what do I think is best? Because by the way, I actually said this recently. Please don't tell any of my leadership this, but I actually said, I just need you to give me some space because you pay me to have ideas. You hired me in this job. And the other side of that is also just being a parent, you know, and watching what I model and say and do with my kids. Because as much as purpose is in my work that I love, like Hillary said, I am the mom who doesn't play well with my kids. Like I'm not that parent, but I'm like the provider mom, like groceries. Yeah, I see some shit. Groceries are there. The food's on the table. Like I'm a provider mom, but I'm also a really loving, nurturing mother. And my kids are my life. And so how I watch them hopefully grow up into be beautiful, kind human beings is everything to me. So I think the mentorship for me, again, because a lot of people tell me what to do and they want to tell me, and I welcome that. It's part of the job, comes with the territory. But it's in the stuff that I choose that I want to do, see, hear, manifest for myself. So
I'm going to start asking myself, what would Janet do?
Or what about, I thought it was what would Oprah do? It's both. No, Janet, you've replaced Oprah.
want to pivot to, we talk about other ways to get advice or have nuggets of wisdom and things that other people have shared with you. And so what advice did you receive early in your career that made an impact on some of the decisions that you made?
I'll go. So I had a lot of thoughts for this one and I had to narrow it down to one. But I'm going to go with, work hard, be productive, be efficient, but don't let your work consume you. So this kind of goes back to the balance kind of thing that we talked about. Your job is important. It's like for me, and I think everyone sitting here, it's our passion. It's what drives us. It's why we get out of bed in the morning. But it doesn't define us. It's not who we are. It's something that it's part of what we do. But, I'm a firm believer. I'm a hard worker and I'm very productive. But also when I'm not working, I am playing. I switch it off and I'm enjoying my life. I'm spending time with my husband and my son and our dog, and we're playing and doing whatever, hanging out with my friends and just having a life, right? And I think that it's really important that you don't let the work consume you. Because if you do, that can lead to burnout. And, it's really difficult for you to be able to, that whole saying of you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't take care of your family and other people, or even do the job where you want to make improvements in the community if you haven't taken care of yourself. You need that time to refresh and recharge. Then you can come back with a clear head, with new ideas, with, all these innovative kind of thoughts. But that's some advice that I got a while back, and it's really stuck with me. Going through grad school, getting my doctorate, I definitely experienced the burnout and the let it consume you. And once I got through that, I told myself, never again. That will never happen again. And people who have been on my team can attest to that, because I tell them, stop working, take some time off, go enjoy time with your kids. And, part of that advice too, that I've always heard people say, you're not going to look back and say, I wish I would have worked more. You're going to look back and say, I wish I would have spent more time with my son, with Noah, because he's 3 and it flew by and it's going to keep flying by. And so that's some advice that I got that has really stuck with me and helps me kind of navigate the whole work-life balance.
So somebody told me when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do out of business school, and I got this job that I was like, how did I get that job? I wasn't on this consulting track in business school. This seems like a fluke. I have this big company in Charlotte that wants to hire me. I don't know how to do consulting. And this professor who was a mentor to me, he was like, you should always take the job where you feel like you're the dumbest person in the room. You should always surround yourself by people that you think are smarter than you. He was like, now chances are they're not all smarter than you, but that is a great place to be, where you feel that you can constantly learn from all the people around you. And so I think, when we first chatted, we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. And I think for me, there have been a handful of times when, my current job, I remember my boss offered me this job and I was like, are you sure? I don't have a background in healthcare or real estate. And he was like, yeah, I'm giving you a job offer. I want you to take the job, And so he said, no, you have a background in the things that I don't have a background in. And that's why I want you to come here and do this work. And so I do think that, leaning into people that know things that are different from you and you perceive as being smarter than you, that has only served me in a really meaningful way. When you think about mentorship, the last question, getting to know people who are more senior to me and people who are more junior to me, who are teaching me about the way that they're navigating their own careers. There's 2 of them in this room who are mentors to me. One has been in our company for 20 years. And one is 10 years younger than me. And, I learned from her how to network and navigate through our company. So I just think that the more you can absorb from people that you respect, who you feel are really smart thinkers and brilliant in their own right, the more doors will open for you, and the more you'll learn about yourself and be able to do a better job.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, for me, I've had different types of mentors at different times in my life. Um, particularly, as an African American woman, there's these weird walls and weird moments and weird, scenarios that we hit. And at that time, you certainly want an African American woman to be like, am I crazy? Is this happening? And so you want that insight. But probably like the moment I remember, the mentoring moment I remember was a moment that I didn't realize at the time I was being mentored, but I was. Quick story. Was working for the U.S. Department of Commerce. I was doing work throughout the state with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and had the director of the U.S. Department of Commerce, MBDA, was coming down. Took him to go see Bob Brown. If you don't know who Bob Brown is, his name is Robert J. Brown. Find out who he is. There isn't a sitting president that hasn't come through North Carolina and stopped in Jamestown to see him. Okay. So in any case, we were going to see him. So we get to his office. He's got this conference, and he's in the back room, and it's this little house. It's not all opulent. And he goes, and he's in the back, and his partner comes out, Frankie Jones, and he says, "Hey y'all, now I'm there with like the advanced team and all that stuff, and they're like, he's gonna be with y'all in just a moment, right?" Again, this is the only man that saw Mr. Brown's the only man that ever saw Nelson Mandela at Robben Island. He was the one who was, and he went to go see Nelson Mandela because Nelson Mandela wanted him to educate his children while he was in jail. He escorted Martin Luther King's body back from Memphis. I mean, right? I mean, he's an amazing man. So I'm like, oh my goodness, we're about to meet this man. I overhear him on the phone talking to the chancellor of North Carolina Central about two young men who are washing cars, but he knows should be in college. That was my moment. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I want to be that. And so that's why I was like, so you have these moments where I get these nuggets, right? And I mean, that charged me for a long time. So just having those moments. So sometimes it's happening around you and you don't even know it. And so now I love him and just adore him. And he's almost 90 and has a girlfriend, and I love him. But he calls me girl, when you coming up here, girl? But so you just never know. And I would say the other piece of advice that I've gotten that I've always held on to is that if you're at the table, act like you're at the table.
Say more.
About being at the table and act like you're at the table. I think a lot of times we're you're at the table, maybe the imposter syndrome that we talk about, and you're not sure if you should say what you think and what you know. Do you know what you know? Do you? And so, being at the table and acting like I deserve to be here, right? Doesn't mean you have to be, cocky, but I do deserve to be here. And I know for a fact, this literally happened to me this morning, but we do the classic, we say something and then he'll say something. I'll be like, I just said the same exact thing, and they're like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Right. I mean, so, but being okay with, and I think it's so much about how you carry yourself. I think a lot of it is about presence, right? When you walk in the room, I often tell, there's a book, it's called Sister Citizen by Melissa Harris Perry. And she talks about a lot of time, particularly with African-American room, when we walk in the room slants, right? And what she talks about, and I think it's the same for all women, when you walk in the room, you're somebody, like they've already decided who you are, right? When you're at the table, you could be Jezebel, you might be Sapphire, you might be, there's somebody, you might be maybe they've got a picture of who you are. And I believe it's your presence. And when you choose to speak, you don't have to talk all the time, and they might be dead wrong what they're talking about, but I'm like, they're dead wrong, but I don't have to correct them. I don't have to be the smartest person at the table, but it's the confidence in knowing that. That's what I believe Ms. Harris was trying to teach me about. When you're at the table, act like you're at the table, right? Don't sit there and just kind of look around and the whole nine, but also kind of let your presence be there, maybe some nods, right? I think it's really about your presence more than it is anything.
Fantastic nugget. And thank you for expanding on that. And that's going to lead us, I think, to our last question. And then I want to open it up to the audience. So be thinking. If you have a question, we want you to ask it. So 20 years ago, or really maybe even 10 years ago, this panel would have looked very different if we were talking about who is shaping the change and leading the change in Charlotte. Would you all agree with me? It would probably be, I'm not going to say probably, it would be all men. It would be all Caucasian men. And preach. Not that there's anything wrong with Caucasian men. I love many of them. I'm married to one. And to those in my audience today, you are very brave and we appreciate you and thank you for your allyship. So I want to know, we're going to talk about the elephant or the Caucasian man in the room. How do you navigate and succeed in a male-dominated industry while staying true to yourself in the roles that you have? Because you have big roles. You are making change. And you are often maybe the only woman, often maybe the only woman of color in the room. So how do you navigate that complexity that is still... Did y'all see the video with the pilot this week? If you have not, say more. I'm going to get it wrong. He said, tell me about she was there to testify on behalf, she was the president of the union. Yeah. First lieutenant pilot introduced herself there to testify. And he says, tell me about the 8-hour a day of what a stewardess looks like. And she's like, I'm a pilot. And he said, I don't know why I said that. So that's what I'm talking about. So regardless of the progress, these women where we're at, there is still, to your point, bias and institutions that are taking a very long time to uninstitution. So how do you navigate in a male-dominated industry in the roles or in your lives? Big question, but just go ahead and answer however you want.
You
Go for it.
You sure? Oof, okay, that's a tough one. But my answer is going to kind of piggyback off what you were just saying earlier. It's because I've had this phrase in my head about taking up space. That's really about making your presence known. I'm thinking of it as taking up space. When I'm in a room, I'm in a meeting, my presence is known. People know that I'm there. I speak up, but I haven't always been that way. I have cultivated that over time. I saw you back there, Steve. My husband's back there like, yeah, I saw that. But no, I think that speaking up and reminding yourself that what you have to say is important and it is valid. And I don't care if that the man, I said it and then he said it and that's what was heard. I will actually call that out and say, I just said the same thing. And if you've worked with me before, you know that I've called that out. But again, this is something that I've grown over time. I've grown in my confidence and my ability to do that. And, there's a quote about speaking up even when your voice shakes. And I remember a time, so my first job after my undergrad, so we're talking, just don't worry, just a few years ago. Okay. We're not going to say how many years, but I was working, speaking of male-dominated fields, I was an athletic director at a middle school. And at that time, it probably still is today, but I know then it really was mostly males in that role. So I was a middle school teacher and an athletic director, and I attended a school board meeting, and I wanted to speak up on an issue that I was really passionate about that was impacting the evenings and the afternoons for the students and their ability to do their homework, and with practice and everything else, they were changing times. It was a big change that they were making. And I wanted to speak up and advocate on behalf of my students and my athletes. And I was 23 years old. I was very nervous and very insecure. And it was a room full of people. Every seat was full. And I kept telling myself, you need to say it, you need to say it. And they kept asking, does anybody else have any comments? And it was like almost too late. And a friend of mine sitting next to me, she was like, say it. Okay. So I spoke up and my voice was so shaky that I barely got through what I wanted to say, but I said it. And then after that, each time that I spoke up, it got a little easier and a little easier, a little easier. And I became more and more confident to say, you know what, that was valid. What I say, what I have to say has value and it needs to be heard. Now, that does not mean that you need to overtake the meeting and be the only one talking, right? You'll have your time where you're, of course, you're listening. But I think just remember that, just keep doing it. It will get easier over time. What you have to say matters and it is important. It needs to be heard.
So I was going to say, of all the urban leagues across the United States, only about 10% of them are headed by females. And for the Urban League of Central Carolinas, I'm only the second female that's ever run the organization. So thank you. So again, very much so male dominated when we go in the room, and if there's 90 of us across, there's 91 affiliates across the United States. And so when we go into the room, but I'm gonna tell you, these are some badass women. And I love going to meetings because I'm just like, you're doing what? You're buying a hospital, you're buying a complex. I mean, they're just doing things. And so that energizes me. But you know, my favorite thing that I think, I don't care what anybody says, at the end of the day, and you might have seen this, I'll never forget, Barack Obama had this thing that he was going around on LinkedIn where he was like, get stuff done. Like, that's it, that's all. Get stuff done, right? And when people see you're a person, man, woman, child, whatever it is, get stuff done. That resonates. It's just got to resonate, you know? Well, now then we have to deal with the person who might be intimidated by us, and we got to disarm them because you're the person that gets stuff done. I know that women, I know that we got to do it too. But I mean, a big part of this, right, in terms of like, they picked Hillary out because Hillary got stuff done, right? I mean, so someone saw that, right? So she's not out there applying for jobs because they're like, I want me one of those, you know? So I would say, you know, in a male dominated space, it's be very clear about getting stuff done. And, you know, I don't care who you are, people will appreciate that.
Speaking of getting stuff done, we are a little over time because we could go on all night, but I promised questions. So maybe we could take 2 or 3 questions briefly if everyone is okay with going a little over time. Okay, look, what are they going to do? Say, no, I gotta go. Anyone have a question? Yes. Oh. No. I want to do this. I want to be Oprah today.
You all get a trip to Disney World.
Michelle, you get a car.
No. What have you read in the past that we should be reading?
For the state of Black America. I just read that. So that's, yeah.
They got little kids. They're like, Blue's Clues. I'm the only one that's got some time to read something. They ain't got time to read.
All the things you can think.
She reads that every night.
Yeah.
I read American Dirt recently, which was like hugely impactful. I would totally
American what?
recommend it. Or American Dirt. You've certainly read that, right? Oh, it's about the border exchange, and it's depicted by a mother taking a child across the border in Mexico. It is amazing.
It's nonfiction.
It is fiction,
Oh, it's
but
fiction.
it is based on a lot of historical. Yeah.
I have 3 books on my nightstand, none of which I finished. A Conservative Heart, because a board member gave it to me. And I'm trying to understand the other side of things. It's cool. And I forgot, is Marcus Kimbrough still here? Okay, well, one I had recommended before was something around the revolutionary leadership. I love leadership books and I love the idea of them, and then they sit on my nightstand and collect dust. And then the other one has to do with, I forget the name of the author, but it has to do with basically 8 principles of being a good citizen. And it's more political slanting, but it's really about working towards the middle, given the dynamics that this country's going through. So that gives you a flavor, but I haven't finished any of them.
Perfect, remember? Next question.
Yes.
Uh-oh, it's one of Carrie's people. It's also the Caucasian man. Actually, not the Caucasian man.
I mean,
How do you identify?
I'm white Latino, so yeah, the Caucasian's in there. The Caucasian speak Spanish sometimes. No, it is about gender because we touched on how these institutions do have a gender bias. Yeah, it's still a male-dominated world, and I'm a cultural anthropologist. My reason for that is because we're socialized into devaluing women's voices and devaluing women's work. We still do it. You can still see it in the economic distribution of income, in which women's work is considered less valuable, even though it's a lot of work. So my question to you guys is, like, as women leaders, do you think it's important to help because you're all mentoring women and men, right? How much do you intentionally have your male mentees and work with them to unlearn their gender biases?
Ooh. Excellent question. Lennon gets a car.
You know what? I will be very candid with you. I believe if you're a woman and you're in the senior leadership position and the buck stops with you, you get to set the tone. I get to set the culture, right? So that means I'm fine if you need to come to work at 9:30 because you got to get your baby to the daycare. You don't have to work 8 to 5 because I'm fine if you have to leave at 4 o'clock because you have to pick them up and you don't want to pay the extra hour, right? So being intentional about those things. I had a team when I was the CEO of the Carolinas Council, and half of them did not have college degrees. All of them did when they left me, because I was like, yeah, you could take that class. I mean, if you're not here on Tuesday, whatever, right? If you're doing your job, I'm not worried about it. So I think we have a responsibility because we know the challenges, right? We know the stuff that we struggle with. So I believe we have a responsibility to make a way, And so that's what I'm hoping that they see in the male in my department. Because I treat them the same way. I'm like, one of them picks his son up. I was like, yeah, you can come in at, whatever time, and then you have to leave to go get Miles. I don't have a problem with that. But we have to set the example of what it looks like as well.
I think I totally agree with Robin. And from my perspective, I think that I work with, over years, I've worked with a number of women who have talked a lot about their kids, and a number of women who just don't ever talk about them. Most of them have had them, more senior than me. I am really vocal about my children. They are a huge part of my life, especially the ages that they are right now. Not that they would never, but they're a huge part of my daily life and responsibility. And I verbalize that on calls. They walk into the room, they might sit in my lap when I'm working from home. And all of the folks on my teams, they see that, they chat with them, they know their names. I think I'm trying to model the behavior that it's okay for me to be an engaged parent, and I'm still doing a great job at work, I think. And so I think that modeling that behavior to me is probably the best way that I can hopefully support those on my team and on tangential teams who aren't yet parents, who don't have families. And I hope that both my, male and female colleagues will see that and they'll be comfortable doing the same thing.
Real quick. So I laughed earlier when you said, this panel would look different 10, 20 years ago, because there's probably a panel at Quail Hollow Club of white men talking about leadership right now. I'm kind of kidding, but not. Because I have men on my board, for me, I do have an expectation of my senior leaders who are men to also make sure that they are prioritizing the advancement of women on their team. So it's not necessarily, even though they may not think that they're biased towards the men on their team, there's a default. So making sure that we are spreading the advancement and professional development opportunities across the board. But then with men on my board, I do what Hillary does. I talk openly about being a mom, talk about my kids, and I'm leaving at 5:30 to go pick someone up from soccer or get someone else to this place. And I don't hide that because it is who I am and it is my responsibility, and I'm a loving mother and I'm going to be there. So I don't hide that from my board when I think that hasn't always been the case. You want to act the role, you want to play the part, you want to make sure that they think that you're working your ass off. And working as a mother and having responsibilities to get food on the table is also part of my job. And so as long as I'm getting my work done, there should be not a problem with that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I agree with all of that. Same thing I'll say very openly. And here's Noah, he's on camera, say hi. But also with my male mentees, I've actually had very direct conversations with them to say, hey, just be aware of this. This is what's happening here. Make sure you are stepping aside sometimes and letting the women voices in the room be heard. Just recognize that as the male, you get listened to automatically. And sometimes what she said was just as good as what you said, but they dismissed what she said, right? Because they were listening to you. So be aware of that. And just, sometimes say, I'm gonna step aside and make space for the women in the room or whatnot. So I've actually approached it as having those very direct conversations and say, hey, help them network, help them do this, give them the opportunities to have some of those kind of opportunities. I just said that word twice, but I'm going to stop there. Okay.
Perfect. And we are 10 minutes over, so I want to thank you for your attention. And I just want to pause. First of all, could you please give our panelists my goal for this evening was not to just do lip service. I've been to many panels where it's like, oh, and I have work-life balance and I just schedule my calendar properly and all the things. My goal for tonight was to ask some hard questions, and I asked them to be vulnerable, and you guys brought it. So thank you. I have a beautiful thank you gift that I hope you will place on your place of work. To remind you of the bravery and your honesty. So it says Northeastern University, Charlotte, Women Who Empower honors Hillary Crittenden 2024, shaping the future of the Queen City. So I have one for each of you. And I know that this conversation probably needed 90 minutes, so we'll keep that in mind for next year. But I want to thank all of you for coming out and helping to support this inaugural event. And we have Local Leader Global Impact Thought Leadership Series. You are now on my email list, so you will be getting all the things. So we hope to see you again, and please bring your friends, and thank you for coming out this evening.